Hey y'all, it's me, Majora, and I'm here today to tell you how on my most recent playthrough of Chrono Trigger that game blew me away. I was astounded by how good it was. Now, a little bit about my history with Chrono Trigger. It's not the first time that I played it. The first time I played it was back in 2016, 2017, and I remember doing a video review for it on YouTube, which is pretty good. I was very gushing about it, and I got a lot of positive feedback on it, and one guy who called me a neckbeard. But it's all good, I thought it was a really good game. I don't know that it was necessarily mind-blowing to me back then. At the time, I had played through Dragon Quest IV, I had played through Persona 4, and those were my main RPG experiences in terms of turn-based combat. Chrono Trigger was probably my first dabbling in the active time battle, and since then I've actually played Final Fantasy VII, and I've gotten a little taste of what that genre looks like and what that style of gameplay looks like. But really, what I think I loved about Chrono Trigger on my most recent playthrough was that, man, this game is the whole package. This is like everything, and I absolutely understand why it was so iconic back in the day on the Super Nintendo. I understand why it commanded such a high value, in recent years for the Super Nintendo cartridge. And even today, that DS copy is looking pretty expensive too. So let me tell you a little bit about what is so good about Chrono Trigger. I think first and foremost, Chrono Trigger has a very compelling plot and cast of characters. And that cast of characters is never forgotten throughout the game. So you see character stories interact with one another pretty well. Magus and Frog are iconic. Frog has his own kind of side narrative about how he's a knight who was transformed into a frog, and he lost his comrade in battle, and he never forgives himself for it. But the people of the Middle Ages love him. They think he's iconic, but he can't show his face because he's a frog. And so even throughout the main story, you see how these characters develop and how they become, more interesting. I think some characters are better done than others, but overall, they work well together. The one exception to that may be Chrono, who's sort of just there, but everyone around him seems to have a very compelling narrative, and Chrono's almost the engine that pushes the narrative forward. So, yeah, he's there. He's there for the ride, and he's pretty good with the sword too, some might say. So I really like how they work as a team to take down some massive monsters and boss units. I think the types of enemies that you fight are very well varied and suited to the time period. In prehistory, you fight a Tyrannosaurus Rex that is controlled by a reptile alien human being. And in antiquity, you fight, some of these mythic creations in the heavens, and so on and so forth. A lot of the stuff that you encounter, be it monsters, be it bosses, they're very well suited to the time periods that you travel through. And so I think overall, there's really a feel of consistency and a well-developed and realized world that never lets you forget itself. And even come towards the end of the game where you're about to fight the end boss Lavos, you can go there from the point that you're at, which is, here's a little spoiler alert, so cover your ears if you don't want to hear this. Chrono dies. The main character dies in the game. And then you have the option to bring him back to life. You could just go straight to the boss battle and take him on with your team. You could have Magus, Frog, Marl, Luca, etc. But it doesn't really make sense. It's just the right thing to do is to get Chrono. And that's one example of an interesting side story you can explore. A lot of these other subquests are very fascinating. So here's kind of another spoiler alert, I guess. Luca can go back in time and save her mom. You can use Robo to tend gardens for 400 years and revive a forest. Glenn, the frog character, can put his soul at ease by visiting the grave of his comrade Cyrus. And there's a whole bunch of interesting sub quests that you can explore, partially for experience benefit and stat raising on your characters and item acquisition, but also just for the sense of satisfaction that you got to see these characters' stories unfold. It's really very well done and very well incentivized. You want to see these things happen. You want to get to know these characters because they've been with you for the long haul. And, while it could have been tied into the main narrative as a requisite before fighting the end boss, I still think it's really cool that you get to kind of pick and choose what you want to do, where you want to go, and sort of explore the terrain at your own pace. That's another thing. I think the game is very intuitive on its own. Sometimes with these turn-based RPGs, I just get confused as far as the adventuring goes. But on replaying it, it's been years since I played it, so I remember bits and pieces. But the only thing I really had a hard time with was fighting a couple of the bosses because of the way that they take damage. So I was getting confused. I would go in, get spanked a couple times, and be like, well, what am I doing wrong here? Okay, I understand it doesn't take physical attacks, but like, what's the best team ordering? And sometimes you need to adjust the teams in order to take them on. Aside from that one aspect, the adventuring was mostly crystal clear to me. And even, towards the end game where you can go into these subquests, a lot of it was very intuitive, and I actually really enjoyed how it was kind of like brain teasers. There's a part with Luca where, she has to stop the machine from tearing her mother's legs off, and to do it, you have to input the passcode of her mother's name, and there's no keyboard, so you have to figure out how to do it. I won't spoil that, but I was very proud to say I figured that one out on my own. I was like, classic gamer trick there. So I don't know, put an indicator in the comments if you know what that is. But that was like one example of like a way that the game, makes you progress in a way that makes you think about where have you been and where haven't you been in what time periods, and also just like how well you explore. I do think that if you're just going for the main quest, it may be a little underwhelming. I felt that at the time for my first time playing it, and that might be why the impression wasn't as strong on me. But if you take your time and enjoy it, if you're not in a rush to play it, this is a game that rewards those that seek to experience it, overall, and really invest themselves into it. I don't think one playthrough will really suffice. I think the second one is probably where you're going to find more enjoyment. But man, I loved it. I loved a lot of things about it. I loved the soundtrack. It was very well varied, very personalized. And, they had a couple of, I think they had the Final Fantasy guy on, Nobuo Uematsu. I may be mistaken there, but they had another guy replace him who's also known for another classic RPG soundtrack. I don't know. I should know these guys' names, but I don't. And then, of course, you've got artwork from the gaming god himself, Akira Toriyama. This guy's legendary. Did you know Akira Toriyama? He does artwork for Dragon Ball. No, I'm joking. Come on, everybody knows Akira Toriyama. But that doesn't take away from the quality of his artwork. And when you play this game, either via the Steam release or on the DS, you really do get treated to some beauty in those animated cutscenes. I think the PS1 version has those too. I could be mistaken. Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, absolutely adored it. I loved playing Chrono Trigger again. If you want to know more of my thoughts on the game, go check out the Time Out podcast on the button mappers that I did with Spencer, JD, and Alex. It's a play on the map out. We mapped out the timeline, so we called it a timeout, not like that thing you go to when your teacher's mad at you. But that was a really fun podcast to do, and I encourage you to listen to it. Also, check out RPG Archive, another YouTube channel and podcast, where I will be to record an archive on Chrono Trigger. Until then, thanks for your time, and I will see you next time.